listen to the wind of my soul. Where I'll end up, where I think only God really knows. I sat upon a setting sun, but never, I never wanted water once. No, never. I listen to my words, but they fall far below. So I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I swam upon the devil's lake, but never, I never make the same mistake. No, never. So I listen to the wind of my soul. Where I'll end up, where I think we'll be.
How you guys doing?
We have a friend called the Power of Life, one of those amazing gifts that each of us was given as we enter this world. So whatever word you use for that friend, focus on it now as you take a long, deep breath to connect with life in you. Inhale deeply and hold that breath for a moment, and then release it completely. And again, breathe deeply. Hold and release. Being fully aware of the presence of life that is you. And one more time, a long, deep breath, drawing in the energy of life. And then exhaling any thought, idea, or tension in your body that doesn't support that idea of life. Relax. Move deeper, deeper into your being. And there, connect with the source of life, your source, deep within you. In this sacred moment of connection with that exquisite, inexhaustible source, we sense the truth of our being, that we are life in all of its unique and glorious expressions. And so we relax into this knowing, into this sense of oneness with the source of life, with no agenda, with no effort. We simply allow ourselves to be, to bask in the presence of divine life in the silence. We are filled with gratitude for the gift of life. We open our hearts and minds to our higher power, to divine guidance, to gently steer us in ways to express the life that we are, in ways that are life-blessing, life-enhancing, not only for us, but for all those around us, for that guidance, and for life itself. We say, thank you, Mother, Father, God. And so it is.
life, this beautiful life. Oh, so open up your ears now, open up your eyes. Forget what you think you know, we've been fed so many lies. I said life is a mystery, it's a beautiful mystery. 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 Life is a mystery, it's a
Thank you, Michael. I've seen you layer your music before like this. I know you've got a term for it, but I don't recall.
Life was good.
Okay? It's just amazing to enjoy. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Living large, that's our topic today. How many of you opened your Buzz this week, our weekly email, and did a double take? Because our lesson is living large, and of course, following the service today, we're having a potluck. But the way it came up on my phone, it said, living large potluck. Punctuation does make a difference. And we are talking about the gift of life today. What was Wednesday of this week? Spring. I got up, I walked down the stairs, and as I walked into the kitchen, 3 robins flew across the front yard and landed in a tree right there on the first day of spring. And I swear they were synced to daylight savings time too, because I was. But we're seeing life emerging all around us, aren't we? The robins showing up, the birds playing in the yard, the squirrels running around chasing each other. Life is eager to emerge and eager to express itself, especially after the hard winter we've had here in Minnesota this year. Some of our spiritual teachers tell us God is life, and life is God. God is the pure energy of life that flows throughout the universe, the world, through us and all around us. And to really understand that, we have to set aside the traditional definitions of God. We do not, in unity, see God as a deity sitting in the ethers, rewarding or punishing on some mercurial basis. We don't see God as an entity that demands certain things of us. We understand the divine as energy. And this morning we're looking at Mother, Father, God as the energy of life. And if God is life, and you and I are life, and that same energy is flowing to us and through us and around us, then we are all innately connected in this incredible dance called life. See, our true identity is the identity of life. And our life experiences, some joyful, others difficult, some fun, others painful, they create various opportunities for us to experience life in different ways. You and I, my friends, are life expressing. Life is energy, and energy means direction. It's our consciousness that directs our life force. George Bernard Shaw, the Irish playwright, tells us, life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. He must have been in unity way back in his day, because life is about creating. So we have to ask ourselves as spiritual seekers, how are we using our power of life creatively? Well, we know how Michael uses his power of life. He creates beautiful music and shares it to gift and bless so many people. Me, I use my power of life by studying and practicing spiritual principles so I can teach them to anyone who's interested, because I want to empower people to live their life fully and joyfully and successfully. We have a niece who just adores children. She's a teacher. And on the first day of spring, as the robins were arriving, she gave birth to a daughter. Life expresses through her as a teacher and a mother. I have another niece who loves to dance. She loves music and kids, and she's majoring in musical theater and education, taking all of her life energy and pouring it into her passions. Now, I have the pleasure here at Unity of the Valley of working with a wonderful board of trustees who are active and creative in supporting the life of this spiritual center with their passion, with their creativity, and every one of you who does anything here as a volunteer, oh, I see you expressing life creatively and passionately as well. Unfortunately, like all of our spiritual powers, we can use them to our benefit or to our detriment. We can use our power of life selfishly or destructively, but that often has ill consequences. Just consider the perpetrators of mass shootings or dictators or others, how their lives have expressed and ended. Consider, we've seen so much lately, some of the Washington power brokers who lived their life to amass power and wealth, and now they've found that all of those things are stripped away for misuse of their life energy. We're told by our teachers that we can use our power of life from a sense consciousness or personal consciousness. In other words, from a strictly human perspective. We do have the ability to visualize and energize ideas based on sensory consciousness, based on what we want, based on ego. Unfortunately, when that's our driving force, life often appears as frenetic or hectic, as feverish or chaotic. We see things like addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, sugar, caffeine. They're all human sensory experiences, which I think are an effort to experience life more fully. Not a well-advised effort, but still an effort to experience life more fully. And those addictions and some of those activities can have some short-term effect, but in the long run, they don't fully complete you, they don't fulfill you. And they are an attempt, a feeble attempt, but a courageous attempt sometimes, to reclaim our true spiritual nature, which is the life of the Creator in us. Those attempts are often ego-based. You know, last week our YOU did the service, and didn't they give us a powerful visual about how ego and all of ego's interests can block out the innate light and love that we are. We can live life and use the power of the life from a sensory or personal perspective, or we can choose to work with the power of life from a spiritual perspective. That's the ability to enliven and energize, to vitalize, to animate, to invigorate higher ideas of expression. One way to do this is to hold in your mind the affirmation, I am spirit, and fully satisfied by the great flood of spiritual life that now fills my being. Listen to this again, and then we're going to say it together. I am spirit, and fully satisfied by the great flood of spiritual life that now fills my being. Should we try that on? I am spirit, and am fully satisfied by the great flood of spiritual life that now fills my being. Isn't that the kind of life we want to be expressing? But what about when life gets difficult? We heard about that this morning in our daily word. Life has its high points, life has its low points, its challenges. Does it have to be so hard? Does there have to be struggle and suffering along the way? You know, a wise writer once said that along the way, we get a series of detours and challenges, and we all get frustrated and impatient because we feel we have to leave the path that we've chosen. But he goes on to say, what if the real path is actually made up of those detours? Instead of learning the lessons of life, we miss them because we're too busy being frustrated and impatient. A friend of mine who's dealing with some serious health challenges really recently wrote, amazing how a person's life can be flipped on its head so quickly. I've had this happen before in major life changes. It's always disorienting. But I guess that's what life is made of, though. And we experience these things, all of us, to some extent. I would just appreciate, she says, if going forward, my lessons wouldn't be quite so extreme. But, she goes on to say, I'm trying to find the jewels in the rough and appreciate all the empathy and understanding that I'm gaining to be even a better person from having gone through this experience. It's an exquisite example of embracing the whole of life and making it meaningful in her life. When life is challenging, when it's difficult, what we need to do as spiritual travelers is to remember, to reclaim, and to proclaim our true identity. And our true identity is our divinity. We do this just as Yeshua did, just as the Buddha did, just as Lao Tzu did, as so many masters before us on the path have done. We remember the truth of our being, that we are ultimately spiritual beings, and that That life that expresses in us and through us is creative. So what we get to do when life is difficult is to use our powers of imagination, of understanding and wisdom, we've explored those in recent weeks, to craft creative solutions and creative responses to our challenges. How many of you are familiar with the series Conversations with God? I think there are 4,723 books, and they're all good, at least those that I've read so far. Neil Donald Walsh says, step into any and every circumstance, condition, or event that life is presenting you. Use all the moments and what they present to you as a means of remembering who you really are. Let each moment be a moment when you are born again into the expression, the experience, and the demonstration of the divinity that is in you, that moves through you, and as you. And he also admonishes, remember too, life is on your side. Life was meant to be happy. It was meant to be shared, to be loved, to be enjoyed. Life was meant for us to reach out and share our expression of life in fun and fulfilling ways with others. We read this in John 10:10. I came that you might have life and might have it abundantly. So the question is how to use this power of life that we've been given. Now, nurturing and developing our spiritual understanding is very literally life-enhancing. Yeshua said, I am the resurrection and the life. And as metaphysicians, we know that when he refers to himself in that way, he's not talking about Yeshua or Jesus, the person. He's talking about that Christ presence in him, that divinity that we all have at the core of all of us. When he says, I am the life, what he's saying is the Christ in us, that Christ presence we talk about, is life. And we develop that life by developing our spiritual understanding and practices as he demonstrated for us as an example to follow. To use the power of life effectively in our lives, we can affirm the incredible, creative, divine life that we are every single day. I work with one meditation practice, and I know some of you do too. It always begins with a word of gratitude for the gift of life. We can affirm joy. When we're experiencing life's joys and success, recall and affirm the truth of life that is producing that. A thought like, I'm feeling really grateful for the gifts of life that I'm enjoying, and I generously share them with others. When we're faced with a challenge, when life is difficult, we can know spiritual truth. Words like, the life of God in me rises above any challenge. I withdraw my power of life from the problem, and I focus it on formulating creative solutions. And now you've had a sneak peek into next week's lesson on faith. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, tells us that the power of life in our physical being is centered, probably not surprisingly, on our organs of regeneration. This is where we create new life, whether it's a child that we bring into the world. Maybe the new life we create is new music or some new activity, some new something that we're inspired to bring into the world. In the Sanskrit and chakra tradition, the lungs and the whole respiratory system are indicative of life in us. So if we want to develop the power of life in us, what we can do is bless our organs of regeneration, bless our lungs and respiratory system, and care for our bodies in appropriate ways. We can affirm and visualize health in those facets of our body. And if we discover health issues in that part of our being, we can ask our inner wisdom, what am I doing that's limiting the unrestrained expression of life in me? And what can I do to correct it? See, the life of God in you and me is brilliant. And the wisdom we need is there. We just need to open ourselves and ask for insights and answers. And of course, if we're faced with a physical challenge, it's always helpful to recommit yourself to your own spiritual practices, seeking insight and finding connection with the life in you and all around you. Living large. Some of you may be familiar with William Arthur Ward. He's a prolific author of over 100 articles, poems, and meditations that have been published in a broad range of publications. He says the 10 aspects of life are these. The adventure of life is to learn. The purpose of life is to grow. The nature of life is to change. The challenge of life is to overcome. The essence of life is to care. The opportunity of life is to serve. The secret of life is to share. The spice of life is to dare. The joy of life is to befriend. And the beauty of life is to give. As we wisely direct our life energies, our life power, we get to choose how we're going to live large every day of our life. With this deeper understanding, let's revisit our affirmation for today. Maybe let's repeat, okay. Together, claiming my power of life now, I visualize and energize all that I think and do based on the highest idea of life in me. So claiming our power of innate and divine life, may you live all the days of your life fully, joyfully, and successfully. And so it is.